Have you ever wondered why some people seem to move forward in life with power and clarity, while others feel stuck no matter how hard they try? The truth isn't found in talent, luck, or background. It's found in one single thing: attitude. Attitude is not just a word people throw around to sound motivational. It's the filter, the lens, the invisible glass through which you view everything around you. Two people can face the exact same situation. One sees it as a challenge, an opportunity, a test to rise above. The other sees it as the end of the road, proof that life is unfair, and reason enough to quit. The only difference between them is their attitude. Think about this. When you were a child, you didn't know the meaning of failure. You tried to walk, you fell. You got back up. You tried to ride a bicycle, you crashed. You stood again. At no point did you say, "Maybe walking isn't for me." Why? Because your attitude was pure, clean, untouched. You believed life was possible, that growth was inevitable, and that no matter how many times you failed, you could try again. But then something happened. Life began teaching you doubt. Parents, teachers, friends, even with good intentions, started pointing out your flaws, your weaknesses, your mistakes. Slowly, a fog began to cover that childlike positivity. You stopped believing you could do anything, and you started believing in limits. You stopped focusing on what was possible, and you started fearing what could go wrong. This fog is what clouds the majority of people's lives. They don't fail because they lack intelligence, resources, or opportunities. They fail because their window to the world, their attitude, is covered in dirt. But here's the empowering truth. You can clean that window. You can shift the way you see things. You can rewrite the story. External motivation can help for a moment. A good speech, an inspiring story, a powerful mentor, they can spark something in you. But long-term change, the kind that transforms your life forever, can only come from within. If you've ever told yourself, "I can't change who I am," let me stop you right there. History is filled with people who have proven you wrong. People who had every reason to give up but chose to see life differently. And once they shifted their attitude, everything else followed. Let me take you into one of the darkest moments in human history to prove this point. Viktor Frankl was not just another name in history. He was a prisoner in a Nazi death camp during World War II. Imagine this: stripped of everything, food, health, freedom, even family. He was starved. He was frozen. His entire family murdered in gas chambers. Every day he faced cruelty and humiliation beyond imagination. Most people would have surrendered to despair, and many did. They gave up mentally long before their bodies gave out. They saw no reason to continue, no spark of hope, no possibility of joy in such horror. But Viktor Frankl was different. He discovered something in the middle of hell that changed not only his life but also millions of lives after him. He realized there was one thing the Nazis could never take away from him: the power to choose his attitude. They could take his clothes, his health, his dignity, even his family, but they could not force him to surrender his mind. In that realization, Viktor found freedom. He decided that even in a death camp, surrounded by suffering and death, he would not let bitterness destroy him. He would find meaning in pain. This wasn't denial. He wasn't pretending everything was fine. He was choosing a lens through which he would survive. And survive he did, not only becoming free but later becoming a world-renowned psychologist and author of one of the most influential books ever written, Man's Search for Meaning. His story proves something undeniable. Your circumstances do not define you. Your attitude does. Even when the world strips away everything, what remains is your choice: how you will see, how you will respond, how you will endure. If Viktor Frankl could choose a positive attitude in a literal hell on earth, what excuse do we have? Now let's move from survival to success. Why is it that some people attract opportunities, wealth, love, and progress, while others constantly seem to repel them? The answer is not mysterious. It's simple. You are a magnet, and what you think about most is what you attract. We often underestimate just how powerful our minds are. Every single thought is energy. Every belief is a command. If your mind is focused on failure, guess what you'll move toward? Failure. If your mind is filled with doubt, you'll act in ways that prove those doubts correct. But if your mind is focused on success, your actions, your energy, your decisions, they all align to bring success closer. This isn't magic. It's not wishful thinking. It's how human beings are wired. Jeff Keller, the author of Attitude is Everything, lived this truth. He once dreamed of becoming a real estate investor. He saw others buying properties and building wealth, but every time he thought about doing it himself, he froze. He thought about all the possible problems. Dealing with tenants, handling financial risks, navigating setbacks. His mind was focused on obstacles, and naturally, he never acted. But then something changed. He began learning about the power of attitude. And with that new perspective, everything shifted. In 1986, he made a decision. This year, I will buy 2 properties. He didn't just say it once and forget it. He thought about it every single day. He focused on it. He visualized it. And he acted. Step by step, patiently, consistently, he went out, met with agents, searched, and moved forward. By the end of that year, he had bought not 1 but 2 properties. His dream became reality. Not because the market suddenly got easier, not because the risks disappeared, but because his attitude aligned with his goal. That's the magnet effect. Believe something strongly enough, hold it in your mind consistently enough, and you begin to draw it into your reality. This is the first and most powerful principle in Jeff Keller's book. Success begins in the mind. Not in your bank account, not in your job, not in your relationships. It begins with your attitude. So here's the question. Are you looking at life through a dirty window, clouded with doubt, fear, and negativity? Or are you willing to clean that glass and see possibility again? Your future will not be shaped by luck. It will not be decided by chance. It will be shaped by your attitude today, tomorrow, and for the rest of your life. And the best part? You don't have to wait. You can decide right now to shift. Because success doesn't begin with money. It doesn't begin with opportunity. It begins with the decision to see life differently. This is where your journey starts. If thoughts shape your future, then words are the bridge that carry those thoughts into the world. Think about it. Before any great achievement happened, someone spoke it into existence. They declared it. They said it out loud. They gave their thoughts power by putting them into words. Words are not harmless. They're not just something you say. Words are energy. Words are signals. Words are blueprints. The language you choose either strengthens your attitude or weakens it. Your words become beliefs, your beliefs become actions, and your actions become your results. So ask yourself, what kind of words do you use every day? Do you say things like, I'm always tired, nothing ever works out for me, or I'll probably fail? If you do, your words are programming you to live out those exact results. But if you shift your language, even in small ways, you can redirect the entire course of your life. Let me tell you about Kent Cullers. He worked at NASA. He was a brilliant scientist leading the search for extraterrestrial intelligence project. His job was to build systems capable of detecting signals of life beyond Earth. Sounds impossible, right? Now imagine doing this with a major disadvantage. Kent was blind. From birth, he had every reason to use negative words. He could have said, I can't do this. I'm at a disadvantage, I'm limited. And nobody would have blamed him. But Kent refused to give his condition that kind of power. He never referred to blindness as a problem. He called it a small inconvenience. Think about that. Blindness, a small inconvenience. By controlling the words he used, Kent controlled the way he experienced reality. And because he refused to label himself as broken, weak, or incapable, he rose to become a PhD in physics and a respected scientist at NASA. That is the power of words. When you shift your language, you shift your identity. And when your identity shifts, your actions follow. Now let's bring this down to everyday life. Take the simple question, how are you? You hear it dozens of times a week, maybe even every day. Most people answer without thinking. They say, I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm okay, just hanging in there. But here's the thing, those words are not harmless. Every time you say them, you are reinforcing them. You're programming your brain to feel exactly that way. There's a story about a woman named Sally. She always told her coworkers she was tired. Every time someone asked how she was, she answered honestly, "I'm exhausted." What happened? She got even more exhausted. Her energy dropped further every time she repeated those words. And not only that, she drained the energy of the people around her. But here's the twist. One day, Sally won the lottery. $10 million. Suddenly, the same woman who claimed to be too tired to function was up all night celebrating, dancing, making calls, buzzing with energy. Where did the energy come from? It had always been inside her. The difference wasn't her body. It was her attitude and her words. Her language had kept her locked in exhaustion until her focus shifted. Imagine if, instead of saying, "I'm tired all the time," she had chosen to say, "I'm doing well," or "I'm strong today." Even if she didn't fully feel it at first, her body and mind would have started to align with those words. Because your body listens to your language. The words you speak don't just shape you, they shape the people around you. When you constantly use negative language, you push away positive people. Think about it. Who wants to spend time with someone who constantly complains? On the other hand, when you speak with positivity and strength, you attract people who think the same way. Jeff Keller reminds us that sharing your dreams out loud is powerful, but you must be careful who you share them with. Share them with people who are negative and they'll pull you down. Share them with people who are positive and they'll lift you higher. Your words create your community, and your community shapes your future. From now on, I want you to see every word you speak as an investment. You're either investing in a future that lifts you up, or you're investing in one that drags you down. There is no neutral. Even in the small things, the casual responses, the daily chatter, your words are carving pathways. If you say you're tired, your body listens. If you say you're strong, your body listens. If you say it's impossible, your brain shuts down. If you say it's possible, your brain starts looking for solutions. So here's the challenge. Start watching your words. Replace the destructive ones with constructive ones. Instead of saying, "I can't," say, "I'll find a way." Instead of saying, "I'm unlucky," say, "I'm learning." Instead of saying, "I'm failing," say, "I'm growing." The words may seem small, but they are not. They're the blueprint of your future. Here's the truth that Jeff Keller drives home. Words blaze the trail. Your future is not built with bricks. It's built with sentences. Your words are carving the road ahead, whether you realize it or not. And just like with your thoughts, you have a choice. You can continue speaking words that limit you, words that drain you, words that keep you stuck. Or you can begin speaking words that empower you, fuel you, and open new doors. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about leading yourself. If you want to change your life, start by changing your language. Because your words are not just words, they are commands. And your mind, your body, and your future are always listening. You can think positive thoughts. You can speak powerful words. But if you stop there, nothing changes. Thoughts and words are the seeds, but action is the water. Without action, the seeds dry up. Without movement, the dream stays locked in your head. And here's the truth. Life doesn't reward you for what you intend to do. It rewards you for what you actually do. The biggest breakthroughs come not from endless planning, but from stepping forward, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're scared. Because the universe doesn't move until you do. But let's be honest, taking action is easier said than done. Fear, doubt, procrastination, they creep in the moment you try to step forward. That's why who you surround yourself with matters more than you realize. There are two kinds of people in your life. The ones who drain you, the ones who fuel you. The drainers are everywhere. Negative thinkers, complainers, people who see problems in every solution. Spend enough time with them, and you'll find your motivation slipping away. They'll make you second-guess yourself. They'll whisper that your dreams are too big, too risky, too unrealistic. And without realizing it, you'll shrink yourself to match their vision. But then there are the fuelers, positive people, builders, encouragers, the ones who see the fire in you and fan it higher. When you're around them, you feel bigger, bolder, stronger. You believe more. You do more. Smokey, a man Jeff Keller once spoke about, worked in one of the most unlikely industries to stay positive: funeral services. He spent 45 years in the business of death. Most people would expect him to be dark, gloomy, depressed. But Smokey was the opposite. He radiated positivity. Why? Because he understood one truth: people are sponges. We absorb the energy around us. And Smokey refused to soak up negativity. Even surrounded by sorrow, he chose his inner circle wisely. He avoided complainers and surrounded himself with people who carried light. And because of that, his outlook stayed powerful for decades. Your environment is shaping you, whether you notice it or not. If you spend most of your time around negative, bitter, fearful people, don't be surprised if you start sounding and acting like them. But if you spend time with ambitious, forward-moving, positive thinkers, you'll rise to their level. But even when you surround yourself with the right people, you still face the same giant: fear. Fear is the invisible wall standing between you and your next level. And here's the thing about fear: it never goes away. Most people wait for the fear to disappear before they act. They think, once I feel ready, once I feel confident, then I'll start. That day never comes. Confidence doesn't come first. Action does. There's a woman named Dottie who proves this perfectly. For 32 years, she was a high school teacher. She was safe, secure, and respected. But inside, she carried a secret dream: to work in entertainment. She wrote songs. She sang. She longed to perform. But fear held her back. Fear of rejection. Fear of failure. Fear of being too old to start something new. So she stayed in the safe box of teaching. One day, she couldn't ignore the dream anymore. She quit her job to pursue it. But then reality hit. Bills, pressure, the terror of the unknown. She gave in to fear and returned to teaching. Most people would have stopped there. But Dottie didn't. At age 60, she finally faced her fear head-on. She started performing in New York clubs. She released an album. She lived her dream, not as a young starlet, but as a woman who refused to die with her music still inside her. Her lesson is clear: the fear never vanishes. The only way to shrink fear is to step through it. Every time you face it, it gets smaller. Every time you avoid it, it grows larger. And when you do act, when you step through fear, you'll fail. Let's just be real. You won't get it right every time. You'll stumble, you'll fall, people will say no. But failure is not the end. Failure is the tuition you pay for success. Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, the creators of Chicken Soup for the Soul, knew this better than anyone. They wrote their book and tried to publish it. One publisher rejected it. Then another. Then another. By the 10th rejection, most people would have quit. By the 20th, almost everyone would have stopped. They were rejected 33 times. But they didn't stop. They kept going. On the 34th attempt, a publisher finally said yes. That yes turned into one of the most successful book series in history, selling millions of copies worldwide. What if they had quit at rejection number 32? You would have never heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and they would have lived the rest of their lives wondering what could have been. Rejection doesn't define your future. Your attitude does. Your persistence does. So here's the principle: heaven helps those who act. Life doesn't hand out rewards to the dreamers. It hands them out to the doers. Yes, think positively. Yes, speak powerfully. But don't stop there. Move, try, step, fall, learn, adjust, step again. Your attitude will give you the courage to start. Your words will give you the energy to continue. But only action will open the doors. And if you want to maximize your action, you must guard your environment. Surround yourself with people who remind you that your dream is worth it. Stay close to those who encourage you to step forward. And when fear whispers, don't wait for it to vanish. Walk through it anyway, because success doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who move. If there's one truth life never hides, it's this: you will fail. You will stumble, fall, get rejected, and hit walls that feel impossible to climb. But here's the twist: failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the raw material success is built from. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid failure, but in doing so, they also avoid growth. They avoid risk, they avoid progress, and ultimately they avoid life. Successful people don't escape failure. They embrace it, learn from it, and use it to move forward stronger. Failure is not the end. Failure is feedback. Why do so many people never live out their dreams? Because they think safety equals success. They pick the secure job. They avoid taking risks. They tell themselves, "At least I won't fail." But here's the problem with safety: it comes with a hidden cost. You don't feel alive. You don't feel fulfilled. You settle for a life that's fine, while deep inside, you're suffocating. Think about Dottie again, the teacher who dreamed of performing. For years, she chose safety. She picked teaching because it was stable. But stability didn't satisfy her. It only delayed her dream and magnified her regret. When she finally took action, yes, she faced fear. Yes, she risked rejection. But she also unlocked the joy she had been waiting for her entire life. Avoiding failure is avoiding life. Playing it safe may protect you from pain, but it also blocks you from passion. Think about the most successful people in history: Edison, Oprah, Disney, Jobs. What do they all have in common? Not that they never failed, but that they failed more than Ennio. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Steve Jobs was kicked out of the very company he founded. Every failure was a tuition payment. Painful? Yes. Embarrassing? Often. But each one bought them the knowledge, resilience, and experience needed for their eventual breakthroughs. When you fail, you are not moving backward, you are buying your way forward. Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen proved this better than anyone. They believed their book Chicken Soup for the Soul could inspire the world. But publishers didn't agree. The book was rejected not once, not 10 times, not 20 times, but 33 times. Every rejection was a chance to quit. Every no was an invitation to stop believing. But they refused. On the 34th attempt, someone finally said yes. That one yes turned into one of the most successful publishing franchises ever, selling over 500 million copies worldwide. Now imagine if they had quit after rejection number 20. The world would have lost one of the most inspiring book series ever written. Failure is not final. It's just a doorway. And if you keep walking through enough doors, eventually one opens. Here's where most people go wrong. They define failure as, "I tried and it didn't work, so I must not be good enough." That definition destroys dreams. Instead, redefine failure. See it as proof you had the courage to try. See it as evidence you're learning. See it as a step closer to mastery. When you adopt this mindset, failure loses its sting. It no longer defines you, it refines you. Here's the law of persistence. You don't fail because of how many times you fall. You only fail when you refuse to get back up. Rejection stings. Setbacks hurt. But persistence has an energy of its own. The world respects the person who refuses to quit. Opportunities open for the relentless, not the hesitant. Jerry Gladstone, who built one of the world's largest animation art businesses, is proof. He spent years chasing a Disney partnership. Disney told him no again and again. They even left him a voicemail saying he'd never get the deal. Anyone else would have quit. Jerry didn't. He kept pushing until Disney finally said yes. What made the difference? Not talent, not luck, persistence. His commitment was louder than their rejection. So how do you use failure instead of fearing it? Start with attitude. When you hit a wall, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? How can this prepare me for the next step? Shift your focus from, this didn't work, to, this is shaping me. From, I'm not good enough to, I'm getting better every time. Because here's the truth. Failure only destroys those who stop. For everyone else, it's the fuel that eventually powers their victory. So here's your challenge. Stop avoiding failure. Go fail. Fail fast. Fail forward. Fail often. And then rise stronger every time. The world doesn't remember the person who avoided risk. It remembers the one who fell, learned, and kept moving until success became inevitable. Failure is not the end. It's the beginning. There's a hidden force that separates dreamers from doers, talkers from achievers. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even timing. It's commitment. Commitment is more than saying, I want this. It's more than wishing, hoping, or even planning. Commitment is a promise to yourself that quitting is no longer an option. It's the fire that burns when everything else tries to put you out. Without commitment, goals collapse at the first obstacle. With commitment, nothing can stop you, not rejection, not setbacks, not years of waiting. Commitment is the invisible contract that says, I will do whatever it takes. No excuses, no matter how long it takes. Something strange happens when you make a real commitment. Doors begin to open, paths appear, people, opportunities, and resources show up, things you couldn't see before. Were they always there? Yes. But commitment sharpens your vision. It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency. Once you commit, you start to notice everything that aligns with your goal. This isn't magic, it's focus. Committed mind looks for solutions. A half-hearted mind looks for excuses. In 1999, Jerry Gladstone decided he wanted to create a business around selling art. At first, he sold animation art from different studios. But he knew the biggest prize was Disney. If he could sell Disney art, his company could explode. So he reached out to Disney. They said no. He tried again. No. He persisted for 3 years, constant calls, constant rejection. At one point, someone at Disney was so annoyed they left him a voicemail saying he would never get a deal with them. Most people would have taken that as a sign to stop. Jerry didn't. He intensified his pursuit. He kept calling, kept asking, kept showing up. His persistence became impossible to ignore. Finally, Disney gave him a shot, but with a condition. If he wanted to sell their art, he had to open a store in Massachusetts or Minnesota. Jerry lived in New York. He loved his city, but he was so committed that the very next day he went to Boston, found a location, and called Disney back. When they saw his commitment, they were impressed. They gave him the deal. Eventually, they even allowed him to open stores in New York. 10 years later, Jerry became one of the largest sellers of animation art in the world. That's the power of commitment. Obstacles don't stop committed people. They adapt. They find another way. And eventually, they break through. There's a big difference between being interested in something and being committed to it. When you're interested, you do it when it's convenient. When you're committed, you do it no matter what. Interested people make excuses. Committed people make progress. Interested people look for reasons to stop. Committed people look for reasons to keep going. This is why so many goals die in January. People are interested in fitness. They're interested in financial freedom. They're interested in personal growth. But interest fades when things get hard. Only commitment survives the storms. Commitment doesn't mean everything happens overnight. In fact, it usually means the opposite. It means years of work before anyone claps for you. It means long nights with no recognition. It means doing what you said you would do, long after the excitement is gone. Commitment looks like a student studying at midnight when their friends are partying. Commitment looks like an entrepreneur making the 50th phone call after 49 rejections. Commitment looks like a musician practicing every morning before anyone else is awake. It's not glamorous in the moment, but it's the only way greatness is built. Here's the truth. Life will test you. When you set a big goal, obstacles will come. Delays will come. Rejections will come. And when they do, your level of commitment will be revealed. If you quit, you weren't really committed, you were interested. But if you stay, if you keep pushing even when it's hard, that's commitment. And that's the fuel that moves mountains. Jeff Keller calls it the magical ingredient because once you fully commit, you shift from waiting for life to hand you something to taking responsibility for creating it. You stop hoping. You start owning. So ask yourself, what are you only interested in? And what are you truly committed to? Be honest, because the moment you shift from interest to commitment, your entire life changes. Commitment says, I will find a way even if I have to crawl, even if I have to start small, even if I have to wait longer than I wanted. I will not stop until I reach it. When you reach that level of commitment, the world moves for you. By now, you know your thoughts create your reality. But here's something even more powerful. The words you speak out loud amplify those thoughts. Words are not just sounds in the air. They are signals that shape your mind, your emotions, and your future. Think of words like tools. Used carelessly, they can cut you down. Used wisely, they can build an unshakable foundation. Every word you speak is either strengthening your future or sabotaging it. How many times have you answered the question, "How are you?" with something like, "I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm just surviving." Seems harmless, right? But every time you say those words, you're reinforcing them. You're convincing your mind and body to match them. Sally, a woman Jeff Keller mentions, lived this truth. Every day at the office, people asked her how she was. And every day, she said the same thing, "I'm so tired. What happened?" She dragged through her day, feeling heavier and more drained as the hours passed. Her words became her reality. But one night, something changed. Sally checked her lottery ticket and realized she had won $10 million. Instantly, her tiredness vanished. She was awake, energized, dancing, laughing, calling her friends. So what happened? Did her body suddenly gain energy? No. The energy had always been inside her. It was her focus, her words, her attitude that kept her locked in exhaustion. This is proof that your body listens to your language. Speak negativity, and you feel negativity. Speak energy, and you feel energy. Take Kent Cullors, the blind NASA scientist who led the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. His entire life, people expected him to use words like limited, disabled, or restricted, but Kent refused. He never referred to blindness as a barrier. He called it a minor inconvenience. Think about that. Blindness, a minor inconvenience. By controlling his language, he controlled his identity. And because he refused to speak weakness into existence, he created strength instead. That strength carried him into one of the most prestigious careers in science. If Kent had spoken the language of limitation, he would have lived a limited life. But by speaking the language of possibility, he built a limitless one. Words don't just impact you, they impact everyone around you. Imagine a workplace where everyone constantly complains. The energy drops, productivity crashes, negativity spreads like a virus. Now imagine a workplace where people use uplifting words, where instead of saying, "This is impossible," they say, "We'll figure this out." The atmosphere changes. People collaborate more. Creativity rises. The room feels lighter. Your words are contagious. Speak hope and others catch hope. Speak doubt and others catch doubt. That's why choosing your words carefully doesn't just build your future. It builds your environment. There's a secret most people overlook. When you speak your dreams out loud, you bring them to life. Words act like commitments. They hold you accountable. They remind you of what you've promised yourself. But here's the catch, you must be careful who you share them with. Share your dreams with negative people, and they'll crush them with criticism. Share them with positive people, and they'll fuel them with encouragement. This is why Jeff Keller says to choose your listeners wisely. Words can either ignite your dream or suffocate it, depending on whose ears they land in. Think of your words as blueprints. Every sentence you say is designing the structure of your future. If you keep saying, "I'm broke," you're designing poverty. If you say, "I'm learning to manage money," you're designing growth. If you say, "I can't," you're building walls. If you say, "I will," you're building doors. The world doesn't just respond to your thoughts. It responds to your words. Words give thoughts weight, direction, and momentum. Here's a practical truth. If you want to change your life, start by changing your vocabulary. Replace "I can't" with "I'll find a way." Replace "I'm unlucky" with "I'm learning from this." Replace "I'm tired" with "I'm recharging." Replace "I failed" with "I'm growing." It may feel small, even silly at first, but over time, these changes rewire your brain. They build a new identity. They shift your reality. From this moment forward, I want you to treat every word like a command. Imagine that every time you speak, your subconscious mind is listening and obeying. Because it is. Ask yourself, are your words building your future or destroying it? Choose words that create energy, hope, and momentum. Speak life into your dreams. Speak strength into your challenges. Speak courage into your fears. Because in the end, words are not just sounds. They are the scripts that direct your life. And you are always living out the script you write with your tongue. You've probably heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful truths about success. No matter how strong, disciplined, or positive you are, your environment influences you. Like a sponge, you soak in the words, energy, and habits of the people closest to you. And over time, their attitude becomes your attitude. Their mindset becomes your mindset. Their future becomes your future. There are only 2 kinds of people in your life. The givers of energy. These are the encouragers, the visionaries, the ones who believe in possibilities. When you're around them, you feel capable of more. They challenge you, push you, and remind you of who you can become. The takers of energy. These are the complainers, the doubters, the ones who see the storm in every cloud. When you're around them, you feel smaller. They drain your motivation, infect your outlook, and make you question your dreams. Now ask yourself, which group makes up most of your inner circle? Jeff Keller shares the story of Smokey, a man who worked in the funeral business for 45 years. Every day, he was surrounded by death, loss, and sorrow. You'd expect someone in that environment to be weighed down, bitter, even depressed. But Smokey was the opposite. He was one of the most positive people you could meet. Why? Because he understood something most people never realize. Negativity spreads faster than any virus. And he refused to let it infect him. Smokey carefully chose his circle. He kept close to people who uplifted him, and he avoided those who constantly complained or dragged down the energy in the room. He believed that people are sponges, we absorb what's around us. And he protected his mind the same way he would protect his health. His story proves a simple truth. You can't always control your environment, but you can always control who you let influence you. Negativity doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it hides in casual conversations. Are you sure that's realistic? Don't get your hopes up. That's too risky. At first, it feels harmless. But little by little, those words start to plant doubt. And doubt is a dream killer. Think about this. How many people gave up on a dream, not because they couldn't do it, but because someone else convinced them it wasn't possible? Words from toxic people are like poison. You don't notice it right away, but it weakens you over time. That's why choosing your circle is not just a preference. It's survival. Here's the hard truth. Sometimes, the people you need to distance yourself from are close friends or even family. It doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop letting their energy dictate your future. It takes courage to say, I can't spend as much time with people who drag me down. But if you don't make that choice, you'll be held hostage by their limits. Remember, you can love people without letting them lead your life. So how do you find the right people? You look for those who celebrate your wins instead of resenting them, challenge you to grow instead of letting you stay the same, speak possibility instead of fear, see setbacks as lessons instead of proof you should quit. When you surround yourself with people like this, your entire energy shifts. You think bigger. You act bolder. You persist longer. The right circle makes courage contagious. Fear is one of the biggest barriers to action. But when you're around positive people, something powerful happens. Fear loses its grip. Think about Dottie again, the teacher who feared pursuing her dream in entertainment. Imagine if earlier in her life, she had surrounded herself with a circle of supportive, risk-taking, encouraging people. Do you think she would have waited until her 60s to release her album? Probably not. Because the right people don't just cheer for you, they give you the courage to face what scares you. Take a close look at your inner circle. Be brutally honest. Ask yourself, who around me drains my energy? Who fills me with possibility? Who makes me doubt myself? Who makes me believe I can win? Then make a choice. Limit the time you spend with the drainers. Invest more time with the builders. Because in the end, your future is not just shaped by your actions, it's shaped by the company you keep. Surround yourself with negativity, and you'll live in limits. Surround yourself with positivity, and you'll live in possibility. Choose wisely, because your circle is your future. If there's one force that silently controls more lives than anything else, it's fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, fear of the unknown. Fear has stopped more dreams than poverty ever did. Fear has killed more ideas than lack of opportunity ever could. Because fear doesn't just hold you back. It convinces you to hold yourself back. But here's the truth. Everything you want is waiting for you on the other side of fear. The strange thing about fear is that it magnifies small things until they look impossible. Think about it. How often have you dreaded a conversation, a presentation, or a big decision, only to realize afterward that it wasn't nearly as bad as you imagined? That's how fear works. It exaggerates the danger. It whispers worst-case scenarios, paralyzes you before you even start. But here's the secret. Fear shrinks when you face it. The only way to weaken fear is to move through it. Every time you confront it, it gets smaller. Every time you avoid it, it gets bigger. Let's return to Dottie's story. For decades, she dreamed of working in entertainment. She loved music. She wrote songs. She wanted to perform. But fear convinced her to play it safe. So she became a teacher. Stable, secure, predictable. Year after year, her dream called to her. But fear whispered louder. What if you fail? What if people laugh? What if you're not good enough? Finally, she gathered enough courage to quit teaching and chase her dream. But once again, fear struck. She froze. She went back to teaching. Most people would have stayed there forever. But Dottie didn't. At 60 years old, she finally said, "Enough." She faced her fear head-on. She started performing in clubs. She released her first music album. She lived her dream, not in her 20s, not in her 30s, but in her 60s. Was she scared? Absolutely. But she did it anyway. And because of that, she spent her later years fulfilled and proud instead of filled with regret. Her story proves it's never too late to face fear. And it's always too costly not to. Here's a reframe that will change your life. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's a compass. If something scares you, it's usually pointing you toward growth. Think about it. Speaking on stage terrifies you? That's probably where your confidence will grow. Starting a business feels risky? That's probably where your independence will grow. Having that, it's safe. You think it's secure. But really, it's a cage. When you avoid fear, you may feel temporary relief, but you pay for it with long-term regret. You shrink your self-respect. You lose your momentum. You stay smaller than you were meant to be. On the other hand, when you face fear, yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's risky. But you gain strength. You gain freedom. You gain growth. Comfort feels good in the moment. Courage feels good for a lifetime. You don't have to conquer fear in one leap. Start small. Take one step. Afraid of speaking? Start by sharing your thoughts in a small group. Afraid of starting a business? Begin with one client or one project. Afraid of rejection? Challenge yourself to ask for something simple even if you get a no. Each step weakens fear. Each step proves you're stronger than the voice that tells you to stop. Right now, ask yourself, what dream have I avoided because of fear? What action have I delayed because of discomfort? Write it down. Then take one step toward it today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Because here's the truth, fear never really goes away. The goal isn't to eliminate it. The goal is to act anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear. And when you live with courage, fear becomes the fuel that drives your growth. Most people treat failure as the end of the road. They try once, it doesn't work, and they quit. They see rejection as proof that they're not good enough. But the truth is the opposite. Rejection is not the end. Rejection is a test. A test of how much you want it. A test of whether you'll keep going when the world tells you no. Here's the truth. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not hearing no, you're not aiming high enough. Failure is not something to avoid. It's something to collect. Because every failure brings you one step closer to success. Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen knew this better than anyone. They wrote a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul. They believed in it. They knew it could inspire millions. But when they tried to get it published, the world didn't agree. One publisher rejected it. Then another. Then another. By the 10th rejection, most people would have quit. By the 20th, almost everyone would have stopped. Jack and Mark were rejected 33 times. 33 people told them their idea wasn't worth it. 33 people told them no one would care. But they kept going. And on the 34th try, one publisher finally said yes. That one yes led to a book series that has sold over 500 million copies around the world. Now think about this. If they had quit at rejection number 32, their legacy would not exist. The world would have lost one of the most inspiring book series in history. Failure didn't stop them. It refined them, proved they were serious. And in the end, persistence beat rejection. The reason most people quit after failure is simple. They define it the wrong way. They think failure means, I'm not good enough. But failure doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you're learning. It means you're in the game. It means you're growing. If you never fail, it means you're not trying. You're hiding in comfort. And comfort never creates success. So reframe failure. Don't see it as an ending. See it as feedback. Every no brings you closer to yes. Every rejection sharpens your approach. Every setback builds your resilience. Here's the secret. Most people quit too soon. They give up right before the breakthrough. Life often tests you hardest just before the door opens. Think about Jerry Gladstone again, chasing Disney for years. Imagine if he had stopped a few weeks before Disney finally said yes. He would have missed everything. That's how persistence works. The longer you stay in the game, the higher your chances of winning. Success doesn't always go to the smartest, the fastest, or the most talented. It goes to the ones who refuse to leave the arena. Here's a principle to live by. The more you try, the more you fail, but the more you succeed too. Salespeople know this well. The more calls you make, the more rejections you hear. But you also get more yes. Authors know this. Entrepreneurs know this. Athletes know this. The law of large numbers says, if you keep showing up, you eventually win. The world cannot ignore someone who refuses to stop. The key is not to avoid failure, but to fail forward. That means every time you fail, you fall in the direction of progress. You learn something. You adjust. You get stronger. Thomas Edison famously said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That's the mindset of winners. They don't see failure as proof they should stop. They see it as evidence they're moving. Ask yourself, where have I been holding back because I'm afraid of rejection? What have I avoided because I didn't want to fail? Then commit to trying again. Commit to collecting failures. Commit to persisting longer than anyone else. Because success is not about avoiding no. It's about staying in the game long enough to find the one yes that changes everything. Rejection doesn't define your future. Persistence does. We've traveled through powerful stories, lessons, and principles. From the thoughts you think, to the words you speak, to the actions you take, one truth has been consistent throughout. Your attitude shapes your destiny. Not luck, not talent, not background, not circumstances. Attitude. It is the lens through which you see the world. It is the energy that attracts what you focus on. It is the difference between persistence and quitting, between fear and courage, between success and regret. Let me leave you with a simple test. Picture a glass of water on the table, filled halfway. Do you see it as half empty or half full? Most people smile at this question because it seems cliché. But it's not cliché, it's the core of everything. How you see that glass is how you see your life. And how you see your life determines how you live it. If you see lack, you live in lack. If you see possibility, you live in possibility. It's not about the water in the glass. It's about the attitude in your mind. Here's the secret. Once you choose a positive attitude, you start to notice things you never saw before. Opportunities that were always there suddenly become visible. Solutions to problems reveal themselves. People who can help you seem to appear at the right time. Why? Because your mind is finally tuned to the right frequency. A negative attitude shuts doors. Positive attitude opens them. Let's recap the journey we've been on. In part 1, you discovered that success begins in the mind. Thoughts are magnets, pulling your future toward you. In part 2, you learned that words blaze the trail. What you speak becomes the blueprint of your life. In part 3, you realized that action unlocks doors. Without action, dreams stay stuck in your head. In part 4, you saw that failure is not final, it's feedback. Every rejection is a step closer to success. In part 5, you understood that commitment moves mountains. Interest fades. Commitment survives. In part 6, you discovered how language builds your identity. Change your words and you change your world. In part 7, you learned the power of association. Your circle shapes your future. In part 8, you faced fear and realized growth only lives on the other side of it. In part 9, you embraced failure as a necessary companion to success. Persistence always beats rejection. And now, in part 10, you see the unshakable truth. Attitude is everything. So here's the question only you can answer. What attitude will you choose from this day forward? Because make no mistake, you are already choosing. Every thought, every word, every action is proof of the attitude you've adopted. And that attitude is either building the life you want or keeping you trapped in the one you don't. No one else can choose it for you. Not your boss, not your friends, not your family. Only you. From this moment on, decide to take responsibility for your attitude. Decide to see challenges as lessons. Decide to speak words that build, not destroy. Decide to surround yourself with people who lift you higher. Decide to take action even when you're scared. Decide to persist when the world says no. Because attitude is not just about being positive. It's about being powerful. Jeff Keller's message in Attitude is everything is simple but life-altering. Success is not a mystery. It's not reserved for the lucky few. It's available to anyone willing to clean their window, shift their perspective, and live with intention. So let this be your reminder. Every day, every hour, every choice, you have the power. The power to look at the glass and say, it's half full, and I'm going to fill the rest. Your future is not waiting for luck. It's waiting for your attitude. Choose wisely. Choose boldly. Choose now. Because your attitude truly is everything.